Welcome along to another instalment of our Landlord 2020 Vision campaign running throughout January. And I do have to say we're recording this in November before the general election, so we can only talk in quite general terms because we don't know which government will be in power by the time this airs. But Peter, I don't think it particularly matters in the respect that the fundamentals of property and buy-to-let, they do remain the same regardless of which government is in power.
Well, it does, in as much as that landlords need to know what they're doing. So often we get landlords come on here and they just seem to be winging it, which is unacceptable, quite frankly. They're dealing with people's homes, so they need to know what they're doing. Plus, if there's any nasty surprises, they don't know how to deal with it. So, I would disagree with you slightly. Come December the 13th, could be a completely different world. We do need to know then, so.
Well, we do,
yeah.
And we will know by the time this airs.
Yeah.
But Gary, in terms of what landlords should focus on in 2020, the whole point of this campaign is to kind of give them practical things to do. What would your advice be as a landlord association?
There's always going to be demand for good property, good quality property at the right price point. Landlords need to first of all check that they are within the law. There's been a raft of legislation coming down from this government, and I think whatever government comes in power, that's not going to go away. So check the legislation, check that you're making money on the property. The Section 24 and the loss of the wear and tear allowance has had some major tax implications for profitability. And then first of all, make sure that you've got the right property in the right location. There is massive oversupply of properties in many locations across the country. So it's going back to fundamentals. Make sure your properties are good, they're sound, and then they're in the right place.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And Peter, I think we do develop a kind of emotional attachment to our properties. When you sort of look at the cold, hard numbers on a spreadsheet, there can be a sign there that one particular property might not be working. I know, speaking from experience, I found it very, very hard to sell a property, even when it's been a bit of a dud. What advice can we give to landlords there?
Well, I agree totally with what Gary says there, in particular about the level of rent, because our more successful landlords are those that are charging 95% of the market rent. Those that are trying to charge 105% are not making as much money over the year because they're getting void periods. So that's really, really important. Yes, I agree with you, but you've got to look at your portfolio as a whole, and it might be you're willing to ride with that one for whatever reason, but you do have to be a bit hard-hearted about it. The other thing is, if you've got one which is not performing that well, it can affect your mortgage. So you've got to be careful on that one as well. We're not mortgage experts. Talk to someone that is, because they now need to look at the whole portfolio. The other thing to be looking at is the EPCs, because we've got this thing coming up. It's not till 2023, but if you've got a low-rated EPC, you won't be able to continue with the let. You need to be doing something about that now. You've still got 3 years to do it. 3 years goes awfully quickly.
It does, you're so right, and that's a very, very good tip there, Peter. I mean, Gary, one thing that everybody can do that's very practical is join a landlord association.
Absolutely.
Why not? Because you've got so much good resources, information, support. It's one of the few things that's still tax deductible.
Yes, I mean, we keep our members informed of what's going on. We're also a pressure organisation. We try and put landlords' views over to the government. Less than 5% of landlords belong to any of the landlords association. So that gives us as an industry great problem in being able to find someone to listen to us, because less than 100,000 landlords belong to a landlord organisation out of over 2 million landlords in the country, and that's a pretty poor situation, really.
I totally agree with you. I think the support element of what landlords associations offer is so important, because in property, when something goes wrong, it can be expensive, and if you don't address it very quickly, it can get very expensive very quickly. So really, you guys, you're all about prevention rather than cure, but you also help if a cure is needed.
Yes, I mean, practical tips. A small one that's come up is this thing about issuing the gas certificate. Make sure it's issued on a new tenancy before they occupy. Otherwise, you can never use the Section 21. It's things like that matter a lot.
And they're the things that catch you out,
yes,
aren't
Yeah, I mean, running property is like any business. You have to invest, you have to build good relationships with your customers, i.e. your tenants, and you have to be prepared to listen to what they want and what the market wants.
Absolutely. Well, by the wonders of television, we've transported from November 2019 into January 2020. We've been talking about what landlords should do. Of course, it is uncertain for landlords, and we don't like uncertainty, but we just can't be complacent in 2020. We've got to be proactive, haven't we?
I agree. It's the election. I think it's far more important than Brexit now, quite frankly. Because Brexit something's going to happen with it. It depends on the flavour of government we get and what they want to do with landlords or against landlords.
Well, that remains to be seen. But thank you both very much for joining me. We've been on the iHowz stand talking to Peter and Gary as part of our Landlord 2020 Vision campaign. And stay tuned, there's more to come throughout January.